welcome back to the channel. My name is Primus, it's great to see you all again. And today I just want to discuss the contract situation of Dame, Kemba, and a bit about Kawhi later on and what might happen with both of them. So first off, we're going to start with Kemba. As you all know, when the Celtics lost Kyrie, they gave Kemba the max deal, which the Hornets at the time weren't willing to offer him. So he took it, he came to Boston on a max deal where this year, next season I think it is, the 2020 to 20, no, this year, he earned $34 million. And he was the third best player on a team. He's getting paid more than, and realistically this season I don't even know who's the third best player. He was hit or miss, he was in and out with injury, and last year Boston was shopping him anyway because of his, awful production in the playoffs. So I'm going to be going over a few ideas. And the one everyone's talking about is Porzingis for Kemba, because Porzingis played horrifically in the playoffs this year, and he's not been the best since his injury anyway. I understand that trade, but I don't think it helps either of the teams. I think you just both get another bad contract. I mean, Porzingis could play centre, or they might run him at power forward so they can switch, take him to small forward where he belongs. But that'd just be them moving off another bad contract. And the trade would look something like Kemba and about maybe a first, or probably not even that, 2 or maybe even 1 second round picks. For the simple fact that Porzingis is... How old is Porzingis? I think he's 25? Let me check that. Yeah, Porzingis is 25 years old. And the reason the Mavericks will want to trade him is he's not the second star Luka needs. Luka had a usage rate of I think it was 44% during the playoffs, which isn't good. It's amazing, yes, that he could handle the team that well, but he needs a second ball handler. Because with James Harden, the offense just becomes predictable. Another trade I've seen is Kemba, which is a trade I like, is Kemba for Damian. And the reason the Trailblazers would do that, I know everyone thinks, why would they do that, is because they want to, I think in a basketball move, we'll talk more about this later, that getting off Dame is the best decision. Because Dame is going on 30 now, and he's on a 5-year contract, and Damian isn't going to get any better. He's at his peak now, and so is CJ. CJ's not going to get any better. Dame's 30, he's not getting any better. Yusuf Nurkic, even if he can stay in, he's not going to get much better. So this team is a first round exit every time. I mean, they've lost in the first round for the last 3 seasons, is it? For the last 3 seasons. So yeah, so the trade would look something like Kemba, and if Boston has to, they could bring in the third team, but I think Boston could put in about 3 or 4 first round picks. Kemba, 3 or 4 first round picks, a few seconds, maybe a second player, but the salary lines up. But like I said, Portland only does this if Dame asks for a trade, which he definitely won't, or I don't believe he will, or if they decide to pull a Thunder and just blow it up, which I think is the smartest idea right now, because Dame's only going to get worse with time. If you keep holding on to him, it's going to do bad. I think they shop CJ, see what they can get for him. If it's nothing amazing, they run him as a first option, hope he can keep his production, get even better production, then try and trade him. They try and trade Nurkic while he's young to a team that's trying to contend now, and just try and pile up picks like the Rockets did a bit unsuccessfully, and especially how the OKC Thunder did. I mean, the Celtics picks aren't going to be the best, but they're also not going to be the worst, and they could be used for trades, so try and get later picks. And like I said, if they tank next year and they get the fourth pick plus three plus like next year's pick from the Celtics and then a late first round pick from the Celtics could put you up to the first, which is going to be Cade Cunningham or Jalen Green, who would both put you on a good track for a rebuild. That would be this year, never mind. Next year. Or they could just try and push it back a bit, flip all these picks to try and stay above water and just bank on the teams they trade with being bad. No, so those are my two ideas for Kemba. Any other ideas I just don't see the Celtics wanting to do. I don't think they want to get worse. I think they want to at least move laterally if they trade Kemba, which is what a Porzingis deal would be. And obviously a Lillard deal would be far more high up than it would be laterally. Next is the Dame situation. If Dame requests a trade, I see him going to the Celtics with that Kemba deal. I don't think people are going to agree with me there, but I think it's possible if he asks out. Because the Celtics still have some first round picks from when they were, the hoarders of them. Still have some first round picks. They could use those to sweeten the pot. Or I think another great destination would be the New York Knicks. I think Dame works with that team. And like I said, the New York Knicks this year, everyone's saying for past years they have been a destination any stars wanted to play in. But due to this year and how they've played, they might be a free agency destination again. And people have talked about Kawhi going there if the Clippers can't get it done this year, which they might not be able to. They think they're 2-2 with the Jazz right now. No, so I see the New York Knicks being a nice place for Dame. They're a scrappy young team. Dame could lead them, show them what they need. Obviously, they'd have to give up some depth to actually get hold of Dame. But they would be able to, a few first round picks. RJ Barrett, maybe. I'd prefer they held on to him, because this year I've seen what kind of player he can be. I was very low on him. I thought maybe we just couldn't see his flaws due to the fact he was playing next to Zion. And everyone was just focused on Zion, so we didn't understand that maybe he wasn't the best. Because last year he wasn't really the best shooter. Wasn't the greatest. He was a great slasher, wasn't a great force spacer, was an okay playmaker. So looking at it, it could be a package of maybe Derrick Rose, Obi Toppin. Oh wait, we gotta find someone to make the money match. Derrick Rose, Obi Toppin, someone to make the money match up. And then, if you wouldn't have to accept it, RJ Barrett is an option there. It's not an option I like. I'd much prefer to see RJ alongside Dame. Be a lot better for them. Because RJ, I believe, is going to come out to be a really fucking good player from the looks of it. Not superstar talent, obviously. Nothing compared to Zion and Ja. But I think it could be a perennial or 1 2 to 3 time All-Star, or be there a lot of years. See him as not a Zach LaVine-like player, someone that will push towards the basket like LaVine did. Not as athletic, or not as good of a jump shot, but his defense has been quite good this year. But that's just because of how New York has been this year. New York has been a scrappy young defensive team, and I don't think Randall is exactly what you saw in the playoffs. You got to remember, the Hawks weren't giving any easy touches. I was very impressed by the defense they were playing on him. They doubled that motherfucker immediately every time. I mean, he was shooting 45, 41, 80. He was doing amazing. He made the All-NBA second team this year. He played good for the whole year. He had down stretches, obviously, but mostly good. He's still quite young at 27. I think he's improving. I mean, he averaged like 25 points. 25 points a season, 24.1. It was impressive. 24.1, 10. Like 24.1, 10. It's amazing what he did this year, putting it all together. He was the backbone of that team along with Thibodeau. And then the add of D-Rose. If you could keep D-Rose, you could. I think they might have to choose between Derek and RJ. And in that case, I would keep RJ. Because Dame fills that point guard role. He fills that scrappy leadership role. He runs the offense. Because Dame is not the best playmaker, but neither is Derek. So he could just be a better Derrick Rose. Dame's athletic, he can finish. He can do all the things Derek can do. And he's got that same leadership mentality, I think he does anyway, that Derek has. I think the Knicks would be a lovely place for him. I think the Knicks have to give up some picks, but they have picks, because I believe they got some from the Porzingis deal. They have their own. Don't think they traded for anyone dumb. They could do really well. And a team of a defensive anchor like Mitchell Robinson, who's only getting better as he gets older. 3-point shooter like Dame. If they can keep RJ, a young talent like fucking RJ, is going to be lovely. Emmanuel quickly off the bench, he's really nice. And like I said, Mitchell Robinson is just a player who knows what needs to be done. He's a good defensive anchor. All he did this season was average low points, yeah, but he shot 60, averaged about 10 points this season, but shot 65% from the field. He's a big man, so not the best free throws. But this season, it was versus the Orlando Magic, I think. He put up 9 blocks in 2018 versus the Orlando Magic, it says here, which is impressive. He just seems to know what he's doing on that end. 7-footer, young, only 23. So yeah, if they can keep hold of him, that would be amazing. Another location for Dame I enjoy. Another reason I think the New York Knicks could be a spot is the amount of cap they have. I don't know if they'd have enough to sign in Matt. Would they? Have they signed anyone since they had 2 max slots open last year? I don't believe they have. So if they could just clear some cap space anyway. That means they'd have 2 max slots. Obviously Dame takes up one of them. And then if Kawhi and the Clippers can't put it together this year, I'm sure he's going to leave. I don't think he'll stay. Again, Kawhi signed that 2-year and a 3rd player option. Yeah, a 2-year and then a player option, which if they lose this year, I think is going to decline. And the Knicks would be a good team for him. He doesn't have to try as hard on defense, which he's stopped doing nowadays anyway. He has a great power forward. If they can keep RJ, he'll have a reliable shooting guard. No offense, Paul George, but you know. He'd have an amazing point guard in Dame, who considering how much Kawhi has to carry the offensive load sometimes in the playoffs, a player like Dame, who does have his spots where he's not the best, but he's not Pandemic P. It would just seem like a good team. Then another spot I see Dame being okay with going is maybe the Miami Heat. I'd see them being the scrappy team. Again, like the Knicks, a scrappy defensive team, not as good defensively this year, but like a scrappy defensive team that's willing to give it all. I mean, they could give them a package of Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Victor Oladipo if they're able to sign him again. Like I said, and then picks, because if if Dame gets traded, I don't think the Trailblazers are going to try and contend anymore. I think the Trailblazers will finally see that it's time to just go all in on the rebuild. So as long as they can match the salary, I think it just matters for picks and young talent. So Precious Achiuwa, Tyler Hero, yes, he has ups and downs, but he's still got some form of upside. Kendrick Nunn, maybe. And then someone that's making money on this team, like Andre Iguodala, just to level out the cap space. They could have a young player like Udonis Haslem. I'm messing. No, it's a good spot for Dame. He'd be able to finish out that point guard role. He'd have a lovely pick and roll partner with Bam. I've seen Bam set some hard screens. There'd be two very loud voices on this team in Jimmy and Dame, both two very vocal leaders. It'd be very annoying to play with, because if you messed up once, you'd get screamed the fuck out at. Like I said, if they don't trade Victor, he'd be a good shooting guard. Hopefully Victor can bounce back, but I don't know if the Heat will bet on that. The Heat probably won't be willing to offer him more. Anything close to 25 million, maybe. I don't think they'll be willing to offer him 25 million. At most, I reckon they'd offer him 10, not 10, 20 to 18 million, which is fair enough. In my opinion, that's still a bit much for what Victor has been. Came in almost immediately, didn't play good this year, then got injured, has been out for most of the playoffs. And this Heat team needs something to give them a kick up the ass. I mean, their timeline isn't good. Because I think if you take Jimmy off this team isn't good enough to be in the playoffs. And if they are, they're an 8th seed. So, and Jimmy comes up to free agency quite soon. And he's also getting on the older end. So yeah, you have Bam and Tyler and Kendrick Nunn and whoever you're getting in the draft this year. You have Duncan, you have all these young players. But if you want to capitalize on Jimmy being there now, you should try and trade for anything that will put you in that point where you can go back to the finals. And Dame is another one of those players that will buy into that system, that will buy into willing to be just a scrappy team, an underdog team, which Dame has been his entire career. Dame would be willing to buy into that. Then I said I'd touch on it. The Kawhi situation. I am a very big supporter of the Clippers. I thought they'd win it last year, and I still think they have a chance of winning it this year if they give the effort. Because it always seems like it takes them 2 games to actually get into it. Down 2-0 against the Mavericks. Kawhi took on Luka head on. I believe he guarded them a lot in the next few games. And they came up and they won that series in 6, or was it 7? I can't quite remember. They won that series. Same against the Utah Jazz. Down 2, came back to be tied 2-2. So it just seems like this team, even though they're meant to be the defensive-minded, give it all team, don't ever really try. Which I don't understand why they'd underestimate the Jazz. Jazz are the 1st seed, and then I don't see why they would have ever underestimated Luka. I mean, Luka took them to 5 or 6 games last year and was fucking toying with them like he was for this series. Luka hit at the end of a quarter a 1-legged 3, did it the next game. He was averaging like He was averaging a triple-double on their heads at 22. The defensive-minded Clippers couldn't slow down a 22-year-old and stop him getting a triple-double. They're just lucky he didn't have a second decent player. Had to have Porzingis. So now, I think he'll stay if they win the championship, and he'll try and go back-to-back. But in the end, if Paul George pulls what he pulls, if the team can't get it done, I think he'll try and leave. And I've already mentioned the two places I'll think he'll go. I'm also going to mention Miami for him. Again, I think they have a max slot this year. If not, they could not offer Victor Oladipo. I know they have to sign Kendrick Nunn. No, not Nunn, is it? Yeah, it's Nunn and Robinson. They could just let that fly. Have cap space, sign Kawhi, move Jimmy to the shooting guard, which he has played before. And I can't see any shooting guard scoring on Jimmy. Move Kawhi to the small forward. Press Chua, Trevor Ariza, Nemanja Bjelica at power forward. That at the centre. Press Chua seems like an impressive forward who I'm quite happy to see grow. Seems like he'll be a great defensive-minded four. Next to Bam, who's not the greatest offensive-minded 5 even, but he's an amazing defensive one. And then Jimmy and Kawhi at the 2 and 3. I don't see anyone scoring on that. And then a combination of Nunn, maybe Oladipo if they decide to pick him up. You'd have, if they decide to pick him up, maybe Nunn, Robinson, and then Tyler Hero off the bench, which I think the bench role for Tyler Hero is the best. I don't think he should be a starter, not yet, not with his inconsistencies. And yeah, I think the Heat could be a team to look out for next year. If Kawhi loses, I think you should look out for him going to the Miami Heat or the New York Knicks, because they both seem like teams that would help him. That he could use what they have, and they could use what he has. Well, that has been me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time.